Hello and welcome back to Easy English with Mel. My name is Mel. So happy to have you here. Recently, I did a video about future tense. It is a fairly short video talking about the 4 different future tenses. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, I recommend you go watch that along with my other tense videos, present and past tense. But today I wanted to answer some questions I received regarding future tense. So our first question is, what is the difference between going to and will? So if we said, I am going to buy a car versus I will buy a car. So both of them are talking about the future tense. They're talking about the future. When we say something like going to, it tends to imply that something is going to happen for sure and it is already in motion, right? So things have already been arranged and it is going to happen. There are plans in the works. So when I say I am going to buy a car, I might fill that in at the end with on Saturday. I am going to buy a car this weekend, right? So it is for sure. I have plans and it will happen. Now, when we use will, it's a little bit different. If I said, I will buy a car, there is a little bit of possibility that it might not happen, right? So even though I believe that I will buy a car and it will happen, there is a chance that it won't. Maybe the plans are not for sure. Maybe I would say something like, I will buy a car this year. You know, it's a plan, but it isn't for sure yet. So I will buy a car this weekend. Even that is not as sure as I'm going to buy a car this weekend. So just because you use the word will doesn't mean that you're going to, flake out on your desire to do something or your plan to do something. It just doesn't have the same sort of strength that going to does, okay? All right, our next question is, what is the difference between will and shall? So when we're using things like I will, I shall, we will, we shall, what is the difference? Well, the truth is that there really isn't a difference and they can be used in place of each other. Now, when it comes to the word shall, this is not a very common word used in American English. It is more common in British English, so if you are learning through English through a British speaker, you may hear this more often. I do not use shall. I'm from Canada, where we have British English, but it is for the most part spoken in an American way, right? We take a lot of our English from American English, and we just don't use shall. So I am not going to be saying, I shall grab the newspaper. We shall go out for dinner. That's not something that I would say. I would say, we will go out for dinner. I will grab the newspaper, right? That is much more common and more well used here where I live in Canada and in American English. All right, next question. When do we use future perfect progressive or future perfect continuous? So this one, it's not used very often, but it is again important to learn. All right, so the structure of this would be subject followed by will have been, and then the gerund form of the verb, right, with the ing, right? So, for example, I could say, I, as a subject, I will have been teaching And now we need to follow it up with what? I will have been teaching for a period of time, right? So I will have been teaching for 10 years. And then at the very end, you need to say a certain date in the future, right? Because this is future tense. So I will have been teaching for 10 years this summer, right? Now this tense is used when we are talking about something that occurred in the past, is still continuing now, and will continue into the future, right? There isn't an end date. It hasn't stopped. It continues into the future, right? So that's when we would use this form. So again, like I said, not something that we're using a lot, but it does come up every once in a while when we're talking about the future. Another example would be to talk about somebody maybe living somewhere. So they will have been living in France for 10 years in January, right? So wow, they've been living there, almost 10 years, and it will be 10 years in January, right? So that's when we would use this tense. All right, our last question is how to use present tenses to talk about the future. So this question came up when I was talking to a low intermediate student about how to simplify their sentences and really how to start talking about the future when you're still, in the beginner, low intermediate level. Because quite often future tense is, that's more advanced, or that's more, that comes later. But really you need to know how to talk about the future right from the beginning, right from the start of your language learning, because things are always happening in the future, right? Even an hour from now is the future. So how can we really simply talk about the future? So we can talk about it by adding time words. Time words are words like tomorrow, in an hour, at 5 p.m., this evening, right? That sort of thing, right? So using those time words. So we could say, my plane arrives, and that's simple present. My plane, it arrives at 5 p.m. It arrives this evening, right? So that's in the future, but we're just using simple present tense. You can also use present progressive tense to talk about things that you will be doing in the future. So just to review, we know that we use present progressive tense or present continuous tense to talk about things that we're doing right now. I am speaking, you are listening, right? Really simple. Subject, to be verb, plus the gerund form of our verb. But if we add a time word or a time phrase at the end, we just made it into the future. Somebody might ask you, what are you doing tomorrow? And you could say, I am studying tomorrow. What are you eating tonight? I am eating pizza tonight. I am working tomorrow. Somebody wants to know if you can hang out tomorrow. Hey, do you want to do something tomorrow? Sorry, I am working tomorrow. I am working this weekend, right? So really simply, all you have to do is add a time word. So if you know your present tenses, perfect. Add time words, and then automatically you are talking about the future. So easy, right? All right, if you have any questions, please let me know. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you are enjoying these videos. And if you have any questions, just pop them in the comments and I would be happy to answer those for you. Thanks again, and I will see you next time.